Aggressive strategy, if you have a good mana curve, if your opponent stumbles even just a little bit, you can just win games.
How does this opener look here? If you're sitting in Lee's seat, he's got the Scorch Spitter into, wow, double Steamkin, double light up the stage?
Yeah, no, this is huge. This is a great start. Getting that Runaway Steamkin, Brian alluded to this card being one of the key cards in this matchup, because with Runaway Steamkin in play, with the light up the stages, you can kind of dump out your hand, and even if your opponent plays a large creature, like something like a Questing Beast, you can just kind of go wide and try to finish off your opponents with multiple Cavalcade of Calamities.
You can see the disdainful stroke drawn in hand now for Gabriel Nassif. Not great in this matchup. There is a target, but it's not much. Just Torbrand on the other side. And again, double light up the stage plus a Steamkin is going to be a real engine here for Shi Tian off to this quick start.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Nassif does have turn 2 mana acceleration creature, and that is a really big reveal. Wicked Wolf is one of the absolute best cards in this matchup. Now, Nassif doesn't have any other way to generate food currently, but still, that will get its value. There are no lightning strikes in response to the fight effect. That is no longer a card you can play in Standard. The only interaction that Shi Tian has access to is Stomp from the Bone Crusher Giant, which will not be able to get that Wicked Wolf off the board. So that was a big reveal. Now Lee has to think what he wants to do here. Couple of good options here. He can definitely make sure that he can cast those light up the stages. The question is, does he want to fire off multiple light up the stages here to put a bunch of creatures onto the battlefield, or does he want to lead with Runaway Steamkin and play a little bit slower?
With no food in sight, if he can get the Steamkin up to a 4/4 and keep it that way, he can keep it out of Wicked Wolf range. He's going to start things off with Scorch Spitter number 2, though. And send in the Clowns. This is something that you see pretty often here, especially against these Paradise Druids. Getting those off the battlefield is fantastic. And you'll see players prioritize killing those as soon as possible. So it's a type of scenario where Lee is like, trades these?
Yeah, I wonder if Nassif is considering blocking the Runaway Steamkin, but of course, Rimrock Knight is a card that Nassif could have, which would be a complete blowout, as it would be able to pump the Runaway Steamkin.
That's right. Up to 3 toughness in that scenario. So instead, he's just going to take it on the chin here, and here comes a couple of light up the stages.
And now Lee has the option of running out, using the mana from the Runaway Steamkin to cast more spells here. But if he does choose to do that, that Runaway Steamkin will shrink down to something that can die to a Wicked Wolf.
Yeah, and we're not talking about theoretical here. Lee knows about the Wicked Wolf,
Absolutely.
So he is going to be planning accordingly. Let's see what he ends up doing. Yeah, it looks like he's just going to leave the Steamkin out of range and say, look, if your Wicked Wolf comes down and kills a Scorch Spitter, I can live with that.
And you know, Lee is no stranger to aggressive decks. He's had so much success playing aggressive strategies, and this is a very, very heads-up move here from Lee. He knows that next turn, with the mana from the Runaway Steamkin and all those cards from Light Up the Stage, he can empty out his hand. But by playing it this way, his Runaway Steamkin will be safe from that Wicked Wolf.
Of course, that's not the only option for Gabriel Nassif. He does have a Questing Beast that he could run out as well.
Yeah, the Questing Beast will do a nice job of just kind of punching in for 4 and also presenting itself as a blocker here. Can just get in front of one of the Scorch Spitters or just trade with a Runaway Steamkin. That might be something Nassif is interested in. Lee here is clearly showing that he's going to be playing around that Wicked Wolf.
He's just going to go for the Questing Beast here. This will allow him to get in for 4 damage while still keeping up the blocker, thanks to Vigilance and Haste.
Yeah, so this isn't an attack, but keep in mind, Lee's got a nice little board here. He's got 3 counters on Runaway Steamkin. He's got an additional one in his hand, and I mean, we've seen Runaway Steamkin's been around for a while. We've seen the full potential of this card already, and Lee here has the potential to just empty out his entire hand this turn.
Yeah, one of the best named cards in recent memory, because it does exactly what it says. It just runs away with the game if left unchecked. Also, Cavalcade of Calamity. available here for Lee.
I wonder if he's going to run out the Steamkin first. Does he have enough resources to be able to just cast enough spells here to make sure both of them get counters? And it looks like that's what he's going to do here.
Yeah.
He's got access to just so much mana right now, so it makes sense to run out the second Steamkin before casting other red spells.
Yeah, things get interesting with this deck. Look, it is a low-to-the-ground aggressive deck, but the sequencing is incredibly important when it comes to Steamkin. You really got to make sure that you get it right. Uh-oh, upstairs with Stomp.
Okay.
And if you're sitting in a Nassif seat, you're like, oh, people usually kill my Paradise Druid, Lee. Maybe you want to do that instead. That unlocks Light Up the Stage for 2 more counters, 1 on each team.
Oh, and that's a Torbran.
Uh-oh.
That is huge. The combination of Torbran plus Cavalcade of Calamity means that those Scorch Spitters, each attack is 6 damage per trigger.
Yeah, and maybe even a Steamkin, depending on how things pan out. That thing can get back down to 1-1 as well. Oh my goodness, Torbran, Thane the Red fell. The Scorch Bitters plus Cavalcade plus Torbran is really a devastating combo, and look at this board that he's got.
He can also play out the Rimrock Knight or adventure the Rimrock Knight. That would put 4 counters on the Steamkin, and this is huge. Again, Scorch Bitter, when it attacks, you get that 1 damage trigger. You also get the trigger from the Cavalcade of Calamities. That means each Scorch Bitter attack is 6 damage.
Before it hits you.
That's it.
Look at that from Shi Tian. Finds the win, and this is not your everyday mono red deck. Wow.
And that...
The combo finish. Chat says it's lethal.
Yeah.
They're right.
Oh, yeah.
Very lethal.
That is exactly the type of start that Shi Tian wanted.
Jeez.
Runaway Steamkin did so much work that game.
Unbelievable turn there from Shi Tian. He's not showing any emotion on his side. He's just like, yeah, what? Yeah. I brought this deck for a reason, you guys.
Yeah, we saw him sideboard out a land in the previous matchup, and this plays out very similarly, so we could see him potentially do something similar here.
Wow.
That was big.
I'm still kind of reeling from that turn, to be honest. If you're sitting in a Nassif seat, you got to be like, are you serious? Like,
how did that happen?
I passed the turn. I felt like I was in an okay position here. I mean, look, I don't think he felt good about the way the game was going. Lee had a pretty good draw, but I don't think he thought he was going to die that.
Well, just think about it from Nassif's side, right? He went turn 2 Paradise Druid, turn 3 Questing Beast, and he died.
And he died.
He played a 4/4 on turn 3, and then he died.
And then he was dead. Wow. All right, well.
Well, that's...
That is how it goes. Now, the good news, you know, generally speaking, when you play against a mono-colored deck, especially mono-red, is that the sideboard changes that Nassif plays have a much better chance of increasing his win percentage than the ones that Lee plays. Because Lee's just going to have fewer options being mono-colored deck, and Nassif gets to take out those cards that he just doesn't want to see and replace them with things that are relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you take a look at Lee's hand this time around, not nearly as strong, and that's 5 lands. Usually that's not going to be what it takes to win with the mono red deck.
Yeah, he would prefer to basically draw no more lands for the rest of the game if given the option. And every land he draws from here on out is going to decrease his win percentage by a fair bit. Now, Nassif has a decent opener again, though, once again with Paradise Druid into something. In this case, it looks like it may be an Oko, though once upon a time could find something as well.
Yeah, given that he's got the Paradise Druids, he's probably going to be looking for one of those 4 drops. Voracious Hydra certainly counts here.
Yep. Oh, there's another land off the top of the library. Tick-tock, right? A couple of more of those, and you got to feel like Lee's not going to have a great chance to win this game. Though, 1 drop into 1 drop, not too terrible here. Then he can play his land and pass.
And heads up play here too. A lot of players might actually be wondering, why didn't you use the Rimrock Knight to get in for additional points of damage? But after sideboard, Nassif has access to not only the Wicked Wolf, but Voracious Hydra is out of the sideboard. So being well aware of the fact that there are multiple fight effects, of course he also revealed that Voracious Hydra, means that Lee can play around it by keeping up the Rimrock Knight, at least ensuring that you'll trade with one of those fight creatures.
Such a huge little play there, right? And you saw the way that Lee played it. He didn't even play the land first. He's like, I'm not even giving myself the option.
I'm not going to trick myself into bumping the creatures.
He's just like, land go, right? And then hope Gabe didn't notice. Now, That being said, as you mentioned as well, you know, that isn't exactly a blowout.
Right.
Right. It's just the thing you need to do to not fall too far behind a Voracious Hydra or a Wolf.
And it's easy enough for Nassif to actually play around it. He can just wait an additional turn, and if the Voracious Hydra is a 3-4, then there's no way you can even get got by the Rimrock Knight.
And of course, he has a relevant play to make in the meantime here. Oko, Thief of Crowns, is going to make some dinner, leave it on the battlefield, pass the turn back now to Lee, and even the mono red deck has a hard time dealing with Oko on 6 loyalty. Oh, there's a Torbrand. Not going to do anything this turn, but that could come in handy later. And once again, Lee, content to trade off Tin Street Dodger for Paradise Druid, doesn't even activate it.
And now, because Lee can't play around that Voracious Hydra, because if Nassif runs out of land and he has a Voracious Hydra, now he's choosing to cast the Rimrock Knight this turn.
Yeah, that way he can use both sides, Boulder Rush and Rimrock Knight itself, and be mana efficient. Oh, but there's a Wicked Wolf. So we could see Voracious Hydra and or Wicked Wolf into the other one, effectively cleaning up the board. Also, critically, a food on the battlefield now gives him the ability to use Wicked Wolf to kill Torbrand.
I mean, look at how much work this Oko is also doing, right? Not only is it giving you that safety net with that Wicked Wolf in hand, it's also absorbed 4 points of damage, right? That's 4 additional life points that Nassif has now kind of absorbed through the Oko, and that's what's so powerful about the Planeswalker. It just has so much loyalty, and it's one of those cards, especially if you're the mono red deck, you still need to get it off the battlefield because your opponent has inevitability. They're going to be able to use that food, cash it in for +1/+1 counters, or most importantly, life.
By the way, chat's ready to call this one for Nassif right now. They're at game 3. They're done with it.
Have a little more faith.
Why don't we play it out? But I do see their point. Things not going super well here for Shi Tian. He finds a Tin Street Dodger off the top of the library. Not the high-impact play that he really needs at this point.
Yeah, he could play out a Tin Street Dodger, make both of them unblockable, but that would only deal 2 damage to the Oko. He could run out the Torbrand, but he's likely only going to get 1 shot at activating the maximizing Torbrand's ability. And yeah, it looks like he's going to just continue trying to whittle down Oko's life total. No, wait, not the... Okay, never mind. He's going to just try to race, but this is just really tough. I mean, Nassif has the Wicked Wolf. He's got the Krasis. He just has multiple ways to gain life. And you know what? It's going to be one of those situations where Nassif's going to start attacking pretty soon.
And he has the ability to close out the game quickly. It's sort of the part that it's easy to overlook in a matchup like this, but Nassif's deck can put out a large amount of power in a hurry, including haste creatures on his side.
Yeah.
Right, we can see lands get animated by Nissa, we can see food get animated by Oko, and we can just see the haste creatures that he has in his deck naturally as well, namely Questing Beast.
And little insurance here, the Ether Gust as well, in case Lee tries to go for a huge turn with a Torbrand or something. He now has the instant speed interaction as Ether Gust. Being able to counter any red spell and put that on top, he can basically just answer anything that Lee has next turn.
So Nassif looking to put the finishing touches on this thing. Wow. Cavalcade Calamity. It's so hard to see triple 1-power creature Cavalcade plus Torbrand, but he's not going to be able to get these cards out of his hand quickly enough, right?
No, no. So let's say let's say Nassif runs out Torbrand. He can play Torbrand, and then if he does, he can activate Tin Street Dodger and kill the Oko. He can get that off the battlefield. But we know that Nassif has that Ether Gust in hand. So what Nassif can do is actually just choose to let the Torbrand resolve and then bounce it, or just counter it to prevent anything from happening here.
Nassif says, I'm going to let that thing hit the battlefield here. And Shi Tian says, well, I'll take it next turn. It's still basically my best draw in conjunction with this Cavalcade. But in the meantime, just not enough action here. Remember, Nassif's at 17 with a food.
Right.
Just no real forward progress yet for Lee, and he's still facing down an Oko.
Yeah, Nassif Has that Wicked Wolf as well. He's got the Oko that he can use to turn the Torbran into a 3-3 if he wants. He just has all the tools here. Looks like he's going for a Krasis here instead. Wow.
Yeah, and Shi Tian sort of let us know how he feels about that. Now Nassif's back up to 19. Still has the Cavalcade in hand, but yeah. Yeah. Lee's doing the numbers, running the numbers here, but...
Yeah, even if he plays out the Torbran here and activates both 10 Street Dodgers, that's only going to be 6 damage. So sure, he can get an Oko off the battlefield, get in for 3, but then Nassif can just untap and attack with everything. And, you know, you see Nassif kind of running the numbers here and seeing if he can maybe potentially close this out in 2 turns. Looks like he's going to play it a little bit slower here. But, I mean, take a look at Nassif's hand. Just every creature is enter the battlefield, kill one of your creatures.
That's right. Another food as well here for Nassif. There's that Torbran back off the top of the library for Lee. He does have the land drop to hit, so he can play Cavalcade of Calamity as well. But it's got to be too late at this point, so he's just going to start activating 10 Street Dodgers, effectively making them unblockable.
And that'll deal 6 damage to the Oko, so the Oko will die. But next turn, Nassif can simply untap, cast Wicked Wolf, and just sacrifice one of the food tokens that he has and get that Torbran off the battlefield. Probably thinking about what happens if Lee potentially has a backup Torbran in hand. At this point, Nassif is very far ahead, but he does want to look at the narrow situations where there is potentially a tiny chance that Lee could steal this game. So he's just kind of looking at all the angles basically at this point.
Yeah, you know, it takes something like a second Cavalcade, something along those lines, right, where there's just trigger, 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 and Torbran pumping up the volume on all of them.
Yeah, and by casting the Wicked Wolf and fighting the Torbran,
it just takes the potency right off of it. So
right.
It ended up being the Hydra, but that is enough to force the concession here. Gabriel Nassif has evened things up at 1 game apiece against Shi Tian. Now, Lee's making some, oh, look at this. He's actually making quite a few adjustments there. And interestingly, he'll be on the play. That's huge for this deck. It just has those draws where you're like, like in game 1.
Right, that's exactly what he's looking for. It looks like he wants a little more staying power there with the Bone Crusher Giant. He's going to be on the play.
This is very much in range for Shi Tian. It is going to require a quick start from Gabe's side of the battlefield, though, if he's going to make sure to try to deflect the early attacks here from Lee so that Lee can't set up that combo finish like we saw in game number 1. Let's see these opening hands. These are huge.
Ooh,
light up, Bone Crusher Rimrock. Oh, needs a 1-drop so bad.
This is just going to be so tough. If Nassif just has a reasonable hand of his own, it might just not have enough here. But, you know, 3 lands, 2 creatures, 2 light up the stages, pretty hard to pass up on.
There is a Gilded Goose, though, for Gabriel Nassif. He also has Paradise Druid and Voracious Hydra, plus a Wicked Wolf.
This is just the perfect opener.
Perfect.
This is what you want in this matchup.
Exactly. Literally everything he wants. Mana ramp plus 2-for-1 style creatures. Now, this will help a little bit, the Bone Crusher Giant killing the Gilded Goose, but it did leave behind a food. And it doesn't really slow Nassif down. He's still going to have the turn 4 Hydra or Wolf that he was looking for anyway.
So if Nassif draws an untapped land, that would be ideal here, because if he did, he could run out the Wicked Wolf and then save the Wicked Wolf with that food in play. But now that he didn't, he's going to stumble a little bit because he doesn't actually have a play this turn.
Yeah, you're right. Temple of Mystery and a Once Upon a Time is all he can really come up with unless he wants to make a little mini Hydra.
Yeah, he could choose to make a 2-3 Hydra, but that's not all that effective here.
Or could he even? No. You see Nassif kind of roll his eyes.
Yeah, because he is planning on casting that Once Upon a Time this turn. So he might have wanted to just run that out first, then get the Scry, because you know, he is looking for a land here, and with Once Upon a Time, you're just likely to find one anyways. Oh, wait. So yeah, so this is the awkward part. He's looking at an Oko here.
Yeah, he is.
He's looking at an Oko here, but of course he wants to use the mana to cast Once Upon a Time to find mana. So
he bottomed it.
It's a tough spot, but you know he bottomed it, and now there's a higher chance of being able to find that land, which is big.
Nassif perhaps kicking himself a little bit there for the sequencing, but he's
this
actually looking at a Hydra potentially.
But this might be kind of that tempo swing that Lee needs. You know, the aggressive deck being able to punish some stumbles, right? This is a turn that Nassif could have slammed something. If he plays a Wicked Wolf, imagine how this turns around.
Oh.
Now, he's got the opportunity to attack with Bone Crusher Giant, cast Light up the stage, fill up the board, have additional removal spell with that Lava Coil. You know, he might just put Nassif enough on the back foot that he might not be able to come back.
Sometimes you only get the slightest of stumbles against Mono Red, and they punish you. Now, the first Light up the stage only finds a pair of mountains. So he's going to cast the other one and kind of plan out his next 2 turns here. Let's see what he finds. Okay, a Bone Crusher Giant and a Torbran. He can play one of the islands and then fire off. Yeah, he looks like he's just going to pass here. Once Upon a Time goes on the stack. We should see Stomp from Shi Tian at some point here.
Right.
But he can wait.
Yeah, unless Nassif finds an untapped land and maybe he doesn't have to run out that tap the Paradise Druid down.
True, true. He still might even just fire it off just for mana.
Right.
So he did find an untapped land. It was a breeding pool, so the painful kind, but hey.
But given that he sees that Bone Crusher Giant, he might want to save that Paradise Druid and take the damage.
You think it might be worth 2 life here?
Right, just to make sure that you can play that big Voracious Hydra or slam down that Nissa. I mean, in fact, he could play the Nissa this turn, but unclear how good it's going to be here. You see Shi Tian with that Lava Coil in hand, too.
Yeah, we see that, of course, Nassif.
I think it's really important.
Know about it.
I think it's really important for Nassif to just get that Bone Crusher Giant off the battlefield. We see that Torbran that is very likely to be played next turn. Lee likely wants to end of turn use Stomp with the Bone Crusher Giant, then untap, play land, play Torbran, maximize on the value of those light up the stages.
Yeah, this is really interesting because Nassif did do that play that you suggested there, Paul. He decided to put the breeding pool into play untapped as a bid to protect Paradise Druid for future mana. And when you look at his hand, you can see why he wants to do that. Very, very important for him.
Now the question here is, do you use the food, or do you just accept the trade and save that food for later with the other Wicked Wolf that you have?
And it looks like he says, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and gobble up this food, puts the Wicked Wolf to sleep for a turn, but Bone Crusher Giant down. So we're going to see Stomp.
Yeah, 2 to the face.
That's right. So Nassif will be at 12 when Lee draws his card for the turn. Tick-tock, it is dropping. He's almost halfway there as Shi Tian. Ooh, Runaway Steamkin. But the window for Torbran is narrow here.
Right, it's kind of right. It's kind of in your best interest to play this now, and then next turn try to empty out the rest of your hand. And you know, if you're on Lee's side, you're just kind of hoping that Nassif doesn't have a way to generate food here, because you know, once that Wicked Wolf is in play and you got a couple of food tokens on the battlefield, it's so hard to fight through.
That's right, and you know, it's interesting because for most of these games, Nassif has actually been a little short on food. We only saw him with 1 this game, and currently doesn't have a way to make any more.
All right, it looks like Nassif has the mana to run out a 4/5 Voracious Hydra, which actually lines up very well against the Torbran.
Oh,
as the Torbran only deals 4 damage. However, Shi Tian does have Rimrock Knight. So he can actually pump the Torbran to make sure that the Voracious Hydra dies. So I imagine that's what he's going to be going for here. We have Boulder Rush here.
In combination with Torbran's ability.
Yeah.
Gets the job done. But again, you know, this is what we were talking about before. It's kind of a necessary evil more than like, sweet, I got there. Like, his Torbran's still gone.
Yep.
But at least he's not facing down a 4/5. So you do what you got to do when you're sitting in Shi Tian's seat. And yeah, this one is very much up in the air.
Yeah, things are looking pretty good for Nassif. Well, in this exact same situation before, he was just dead. So now he can go Runaway Steamkin, Lava Coil Wicked Wolf and Stomp Paradise Druid. And that's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
And then he's got multiple creatures that he has off to the side. They're all on an adventure, ready to hit the battlefield next turn. And that's probably what he wants to do here.
Yeah, so not too bad here. This is going to be a really good turn for Lee. But you and I know about Gabriel Nassif's hand, and it looks pretty darn strong here. Nissa, probably the best card in his deck, and he's got another Wicked Wolf, which is one of the best cards in this matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if Shi Tian kills both of the creatures on the battlefield, he'll be left with a 3/3 Runaway Steamkin. If Nassif can draw an untapped land next turn, he can run out Nissa, untap one of his forests, play another land, and then actually run out that Wicked Wolf to get that Runaway Steamkin off the battlefield. And that's what you want to do, because we saw...
Even if it's just a trade.
Even if it's just a trade, because at the end of the day, you still have a Nissa in play. It's going to have 5 loyalty, and you still have a Once Upon a Time to find something else.
Yeah, and of course, you know, one thing to keep in mind, Mono Red, not known for its defensive prowess. And if your opponent just starts putting out 3/3 haste creatures every turn, they simply cannot keep up. They're forced to try to race you, and with no board, that's going to be very difficult.
The other option here, of course, is to just run out the Rimrock Knight and to have more creatures on the battlefield to be able to put pressure on a potential Nissa coming up.
And that's exactly what he's going to do. It still leaves the Steamkin at a 3/3, as you mentioned before, Paul, and there's that untapped land.
So now if he does do the Nissa into Wicked Wolf, he will be tapped out. He will be tapped out, so he won't have any defenses, meaning that he can use the Wicked Wolf to get the Runaway Steamkin off the battlefield. However, the Rimrock Knight will be able to deal 3 damage to Nissa, and then Nassif might be concerned about what other effects he can have to get that Nissa off the battlefield, because he's running out of resources.
Mm-hmm. Once Upon a Time, of course, a nice one for Nassif as well, though that could find him more action. Transitioning beautifully from your opening hand when it usually becomes a land or a 1-drop to the late game where it becomes your expensive card.
Oh, excuse me. He actually had enough lands here, right? So he can play the Wicked Wolf and he'll still have a 3/3 blocker here. Of course, yeah, and Lee not happy about this.
Lee goes, I've seen this before. Now Nissa gets to activate and wake up a land. And he can even get in for 3 for free here because of Vigilance and the fact that the Rimrock Knight can't block.
Can't block.
Yep. And again, this matters. The damage adds up very quickly here from Nassif's side, and we've seen Nissa be her own standalone win condition multiple times throughout the course of this event, and that looks like exactly the way things are going here. Gabriel Nassif moving ever closer here to the knockout punch against Lee.
Yeah. This is just super tough if you're in Lee's position at this point. He basically needs Nassif to whiff on the Once Upon a Time, just hit lands, and maybe hit a few more lands on top of that to even have a chance.
Right. We're starting to get into those convoluted scenarios where Lee has to start making assumptions that aren't realistic. You know, like you said, miss on Once Upon a Time, flood out from there, and I have to draw a certain sequence of cards. Because look at Lee's hand. He's not doing anything explosive or amazing here either.
Right. Oh,
he missed. Wow, he actually missed. Finds a forest, and Lee smiles. He's like, "Well."
Let's see if he's like, "Wait, is there a possibility here?" What's going on?
Okay. So this is you're telling me I've got a chance stage 1 here from Shi Tian, but he needs to find action off the top of his library and have Nassif continue to brick.
Right.
And even then, he has to deal with this Nissa.
Oh, no. Lee still has his back against the wall here, but at least there's a little bit of hope now.
Stage 1 complete.
Exactly, because Nassif missed with that Once Upon a Time. So now Lee also has the question right now, you know, do I want to just run out the Bone Crusher Giant, or do I want to get that little extra bit of value here and use the Stomp to get that Paradise Druid off the battlefield?
Looks like he'd rather have a pair of Bone Crushers.
Yeah, the nice thing about that is, again, you're just hoping for Nassif to miss, right? So you just run it out.
Does Nassif miss?
Oh,
he finds another reroll with Once Upon a Time. There's no way he can miss twice, though.
No.
And Lee knows it. He just shook his head. He's like, no way you're going to miss twice. You know, he kind of did. A Paradise Druid is not exactly the impact card that he wanted. Out of 10 cards, he found a Forest and a Paradise Druid.
Yeah, but Nassif just has the ability to make a 3/3 every single turn while also drawing a card.
Yeah, that's the problem here, is that Nissa Who Shakes the World, way too powerful here to overcome if you're in Lee's seat. He needs to kick things off with light up the stage.
Light up the stage is the best card because I don't think he brought in Frenzy. Oh, and that is not what he wanted. He needed to rattle together 3-4 key spells here in a row while Nassif misses to have a chance.
That's right. That was probably the death knell for Shi Tian here at Mythic Championship 5. He had no wiggle room here. None from that position. He needed everything to go right. And even Nassif finding a creature was a bad news for him.
Right.
A land off the top basically seals the deal here for Gabriel Nassif.
Yeah. Yeah, Gilded Goose also strong, right?
Nassif is laughing because he just can't seem to find the hammer blow here. But the truth is,
Doesn't
he
matter.
doesn't need it. He's got Nissa who shakes the world, and that's all the win condition you need, it turns out.
Hey, it's a mana sink.
Yeah, there's another Bone Crusher Giant. Lee kind of gives the shake of the head like, well, I can kill this Gilded Goose, then play the Giant itself. But again, none of these are the types of plays that lead to a win for Lee. He needs to chain together multiple things, not just one at a time.
Yeah, we always, in situations like this in the past, it's always, hey, he needs to draw Experimental Frenzy, but Lee did not bring it in for this matchup.
Interestingly here, Nissa's on 8, but I don't feel like Nassif is in a position where he really cares to go for the ultimate. He'd rather just have 3/3s turn after turn.
Definitely.
And he found another land. It's Castle Garenbrig off the top. These last draws, including the cards found from Once Upon a Time, have been horrendous for Gabriel, but he's got Nissa, so who needs it? Scorch Spitter. This is kind of what you sign up for, and that's going to do it. That's enough for Shi Tian to concede, and Gabriel Nassif moves on. Staves off defeat there. A great run for Lee.
Yeah, absolutely. Just really the only mono red Cavalcade player in the entire tournament and running it up all the way into the top 8.
Yeah, really impressive run by him and a really solid metagame call as well. He took that mono red deck in because he thought he was going to be facing a lot of Golos, and he manhandled Golos yesterday to get here. But it is Gabriel Nassif who ends up advancing here and keeping the dream alive. He's